my name is Tuesday Berry, and born and raised here in Charleston, West Virginia. I initially started out in Kanawha City. My mother and I lived with my grandparents in Kanawha City, and I started out at Chamberlain Elementary School, but we moved around quite a bit. And with that, I lived in Washington Manor, lived in Orchard Manor. Then I eventually moved back with my grandparents, but I've been all over. I went to Roosevelt Junior High School and then to Capitol High School, graduated from Capitol High School and went to West Virginia State College then. It's now West Virginia State University. So there's been so much history within my history, but it's been great. As far as my education and what I went to school for, it was a little different than what my degree is actually in, and I'm doing something much more different in device sales than I ever anticipated. But it's been a great journey and very, very successful, and I'm happy. And the blessings definitely, absolutely have been there. I am where I am supposed to do, and it's what God has intended for me to do. I'm very happy, and it's just been a wonderful journey. Sure, I guess if you look at an apples to apples comparison, what I would always hear my grandmother say, in which I was extremely close with my grandmother, times aren't like they used to be. And I've definitely thought that, if not said that. But in terms of the way that it was when I was growing up, there was freedom, I felt. Freedom to just go outside and play, freedom to even be outside for extended periods of time without, or at least in my perception, feeling that your parents would worry about the surroundings. I, would walk to school, that was more junior high school, but walk to school and without fear. Now, and I don't necessarily know if it's the time or if it's just my perception of the time, but it definitely is different. There's so much within social media that is available. And I think the dynamics of we as people, we're a little bit different. And I don't know if it's because of the surrounding circumstances, but it's a little different. And I don't know, and it could be me, honest to goodness. I don't know if I'm as trusting as the generation prior to for my children being out and about. So that being said, and sorry to elaborate on that, but as far as the change in time, I think the time in which I grew up, it was more of a trusting type of environment, but two, I was definitely more, worldly in the sense that I come and am a product of a single mother. So I was a latchkey kid because my mother was ill, and she's passed away now, but I definitely was more independent. And my kids love them deeply, but they're definitely more dependent. So in terms of my generation, or for me, wanting my children to have better than what I had, I've always had the roots and the foundation. I've always had a loving home with my grandparents, but my children definitely, as far as that work mentality, they don't necessarily have that, and that's what I grew up with. I would definitely say, in terms of African American, really, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm a little stubborn, but when anyone tells you you can't do it, you aspire to do it. Don't, let anyone tell you that you cannot do something or you're not good enough. You prove them wrong, and that's just me. Just always know if you work hard, you're just as good, if not better, than anyone else who does that. But that's the challenge. Just work hard and be your best self, the best person. And that is what I would have to say. Just accept the challenge, aspire to do better, be a great person, and as long as you know that you are doing right and doing the best, then keep the journey going. So for mothers, and I was one of those mothers, I had We had our first child when we were in college. And so I wasn't married and didn't at that point in time have my degree. So I worked 40 hours a week during the day for state government, and I went to night school up to 18 hours in the evenings after work. But the journey is hard, but it is so rewarding, absolutely so rewarding. And it's definitely something that is a challenge in and of itself. But that being said, once you have it, no one can take that away from you. So absolutely work hard and keep pressing on. And again, I feel like I was in that position too. Our first child was a boy and is a boy. And I'm thankful to say he's now graduated from college and he's getting ready to go into the Air Force. So raising boys, I would say, and I don't necessarily know that I've raised my boy in the right way. I've raised him in the way that I've known and the way that I want it to be better than in which I grew up from certain aspects. But I don't know, I had a little bit of tough love with him, and even still yet, because I want him to know that I love him dearly, and I always will, and always have. But I want him to know and don't feel that even though he's done well and he's succeeded and he's achieved things that he's wanted to achieve, I don't want him to feel that there's a sense of entitlement. So I repressed things a bit. I didn't spoil him in a lot of ways that our community has spoiled, a more affluent community, but I wanted him to know, so I always made sure that I gave him what he needed, but didn't always give him what he wanted. So that being said, I think it's tough with raising males, and I do feel, in my opinion, personal opinion, you need a good male role model to raise a male, and that's strictly my opinion. But as a mother, nurturing him, giving him the guidance, what he needs to be successful, always give him that. If you're raising a male, your heart is always be there because he's always going to be your little boy no matter how old he gets. But as far as the aspect of doing things perfect, there is no perfect, there is no handbook. But give him your love, give him your guidance, let him know, the mannerable aspect, the respectful aspect, and he'll grow strong. And even with my son, he's definitely grown strong. I'm definitely very proud of him. And it'll be a journey because there's so many things in the community that they can get into. But you lay the foundation, and with your help and guidance, they'll always find their way. So, well, you know how I feel about this church, and I met you some time ago, and there was something on the radio that I had even heard prior to meeting you in person, prior to hearing you on the radio. But what I find about Grace Bible Church that I feel sets it apart from the other churches that I've seen, and even familial aspects, I love that what I hear and then what I have seen, you practice what you preach. And the church as a whole, I feel that, and I'm speaking from a personal aspect, if you're looking for a church, as I was, and I found this church, and now I consider it my church home, but if you're looking for a church that, regardless of where you come from, regardless of who you are, color, nomenclature, whatever the aspect is, financial aspect, so socioeconomic status, it's home. There's no judgment. It's so very unpretentious, and it's just a really good foundation to be in. So that's what I would say, and I'm happy to be here.